Good evening.
Good evening.
Peace, blessings to you tonight. My name is Joel Lohr. I am president here at Hartford International University for Religion and Peace. It's my honor to welcome you. I have now been here since 2018, and I have not yet experienced the chapel in this way, honestly. I said to our honored guest, Brian Whelan, tonight, that I feel like this piece was made for this space. Is it? And I would just like to offer, we will take very good care of it. If you would like to leave it here, that's what my friend Rabbi Cantor said to us. Let's offer to take good care of it. We'll be quite happy with it here. But it really does fit the space. And I just enjoyed, as I came into the room, as you all sort of were milling about and sitting down, the way your eyes were drawn to it and just kind of drawn into the piece. And I think that says a lot about your work, Brian. So congratulations, and thank you so much for allowing us the privilege of being here with you tonight, but experiencing the work of your hands. And I think all that we do in some ways are creative acts, that we are endowed with that gift by God to create things. And some things draw us maybe in different ways closer to our Creator, and I see this piece as one of them. I don't have a lot to say other than welcome. Thank you for being here tonight and supporting this event. I believe this is one of a series of events. I believe, David, are you going to say more about that? Okay, so make sure you don't only go to this one. There'll be other opportunities. And the nice thing about going to a few of these is that you're going to meet HIU folks here. I'm just delighted we have many of our Indonesian students here tonight. Thank you. Can we recognize them tonight? Thank you for being here. Some of our other students are here. I'd like to acknowledge you and thank you for being here as well. As well as our faculty, Dr. Dayhill, I see, Dr. Grafton. If I'm missing anyone here, but Susan is here tonight from our staff, and Joe. Actually, we really need to acknowledge Joe, who does so much for these. And Liz. Someone was pointing to Liz like, yes, Liz, thank you, Liz, for everything you do. With that, I'm going to pass over to Dr. David Grafton, who organized this, and he really does deserve a special thanks for all these wonderful things. We don't get to use this.
I know, it's just like...
Has anyone ever seen the stage used here before? I think
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. So delighted you're all here for this opening of this exhibition, The Holy City, A Spiritual Pilgrimage. As we're thanking people, there's one person that we really need to thank, and that is the person who actually got this up mounted on the wall, and that's Angelis Torres. Without her, this would not have been possible. We would have kind of put it against the wall. Anyway, thanks to her for all the work that she's done. So, and of course, thank you to Brian and Wendy for, where's Wendy? There you are, in the back. It's been an honor and treasure to get to know you over what I think now is about a year, actually, since I first met you and saw this wonderful artwork and came to know your work more. And so this has just been a delight for me to be a part of this. So this is facilitating art and religion and spirituality, and it's what we do here at HIU, so I'm delighted. It's important to recognize, as President Lohr said, that this is kicking off what will be a 6-week exhibition of this artwork, but also a number of other activities around the theme of pilgrimage that will be hosted by 5 other organizations that are doing different things in their own way, who have co-sponsored this art exhibition with us. So I want to make sure that I mention them. The Center for Transformative Spirituality, the Mandel Jewish Community Center, the J.P. Webster Library at First Church, West Hartford, the Farmington Valley American Muslim Center, and the Spiritual Life Center. All of these organizations have made this event possible. And they are all, in a number of ways, hosting an event throughout the next 6 weeks. I encourage you to go onto the website where you registered for this event and you can scroll down and see these different events that they're doing. And over the next 6 weeks, go to their site, their organization, and register and attend their events. I encourage that. That's part of working together and collaborating over art. Now, a little bit about Brian, at least what I think I know about Brian as the artist. So it's wonderful to have him here. Brian is an Irish citizen, born in London, and trained at the Royal Academy of Art in London, and spent about 20 years in East Anglia. And there he spent time studying medieval churches. The vestiges of the medieval art form resonate in Brian's, or from perhaps, his Irish Catholic roots. That was a part of his growing up. And his work is much like medieval art, which, and here I'm quoting, depicts a sublime comedy of life's glories and tragedies, which is a part of the human condition and human experience. One commentator on his work has described his church paintings as, quote, "It's as if a medieval stonemason had been given a box of paints," which is just awesome. So, in addition to painting religious subjects, and you can see all this on Brian's website, which I encourage you to go to, Brian also has felt compelled to paint London, the city of his birth. And interestingly, he does this from the safety of his studio in Wilton, Connecticut. So there he produces the cityscapes, and if memory proves to be the only way the vast subject matter can be put to work on a work of art on canvas. Now, this particular exhibition here, this art, was first exhibited at the Washington National Cathedral in 2016. And on Brian's website, there's a wonderful video there of them installing it. And there's also a nice booklet about the exhibition at the National Cathedral. These are available for $10 outside. You can purchase one of these. It has color pictures of some of his artwork. I first saw it when this exhibit went to Fairfield University, and that's when I saw it displayed, and I thought, oh, we must have it here. So anyway, those are just a few things that I've learned about Brian over the last year, and I hope to learn a lot more over the time, and it's wonderful to have you with us, and I'm sure you're as eager as I am to have Brian talk about his art and this exhibit. Thank you. Good.
Actually, that quote, medieval craftsman, that was said by a monk who gave me that little quote and said, you can use that on your website if you like. But another funnier one, I start by saying, somebody said, looking at a Brian Whelan painting is like looking at a stained glass window through the eyes of Bart Simpson. Which I thought was fantastic, and in fact it got me quite a lot of work. So thanks, my thanks go to David Grafton for inviting me to show here today, and his colleagues, Director Susan Schoenberger for communications, and Director for Facilities Paul Gregorio. A special recognition goes to Angelis, you're right, I mean, and to you, David, for installing a work of art that is far more difficult to install than it appears. It looks easy, but it's not. Also to my wife, Wendy, who is always the engine behind my exhibitions. I would also like to thank everyone for coming here this evening. Most of all of these paintings are called, the ones here today are called the Holy City. A place where the very idea of peace and harmony reigning supreme might appear naive, even childlike. How does this exhibition appear against what is happening in the Middle East? How did this exhibition appear set against, for example, the 9/11 attacks? These paintings need some context. Where did the motivation to make this come from, and does that motivation contain a message for us? The holy cities that I've painted, I hope, speak to that which pilgrims have always sought. A place where one's soul can find refuge and rest. These holy city paintings provide a pilgrimage of sight and compel the viewer to find their place, their access point, their moment within that sacred place. A place the human spirit so fervently desires, but which the human race has not achieved. The story that led me to what is now a whole collection of paintings is in and of itself a pilgrim's tale. 30 years ago, when I ran community art projects in England for the Arts Council of Great Britain, 8 elderly people were gathered together when I asked, in a very casual way, if anyone had ever been to the Holy City. Without offering any more detail to my statement, there was only one of these 8 who said she had. But this very one, who could offer a description, preferred not to be reminded of it. So alas, 7 contributors, an artist in residence, that was me, and 1 abstainer, used the afternoon to create the holy city not as remembered, but as it was imagined. And then something special happened. The title Holy City is a door unto itself. Freed from the encumbrance of memory, we were able to create a city which was vibrant in every manner of diversity. Church nestled into the side of mosque, contrary shapes yielding to one another, colours bright and radiant, walls impossible and eccentric as no building committee would have ever allowed. All flowed from the pilgrims' hands as we playfully built our city on the foundation of paper, paint, glue, scissors, and the candy wrappers taken from the chocolates we were eating at the time. The abstainer in the group looked upon our glorious city and pronounced it as nothing like that which she had ever seen. And so, prophetically and innocently, proclaimed the very essence of what still draws me into the countless versions of the holy cities which I have painted. A city in which there is room for a myriad of expressions, coexisting with one another without apology, or the need to sacrifice those things which are distinctive and unique. The uniqueness of each part contributing to the total harmony. Here is a city which is more organic and organized. Living walls, breathing stones, animated structures which grow like the good seed which has found the good soil. It is urban and conspicuously human, welcoming the stranger, yet has the feeling of a great forest which, reaching toward heaven, begs for the pilgrim to come inside and explore what is concealed beneath its boughs. Each part of any painting has its part to play in the whole. Each part reflects the rest. Each part holds a visual idea and is complemented by the next part. High meets low, hot meets cool, decorative meets minimal, and flamboyant meets subtle, all interspersed with the forgiving trees and flowers. An observer of the work back in 2016 questioned me about the various houses. He, like the abstainer in my art group, considered those doors in the painting to be closed to pilgrims. He said he couldn't see a way into the many buildings. To him, the walls were fortified to keep people out, especially the hated, the feared, and the undesirable. I reminded him of Matthew 7:7. It reads, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you." This painting also challenges what some see as their route to peace, that being the final domination of one faith group over another. Uniformity as the natural conclusion to where the world is going. But diversity is part of the holy. Even within a religion, there are differences of expression. I have observed in my 50 years as an artist, the more similar two things are, the more we tend to look for the differences in them. And the more different things are, the more we look for similarities. Pinky reds and orangey reds do not get on at all. Blood orange and sky blue are great friends. This holy city is living. It's a changing place, an evolving place, and an urban place. It reminds me that faith is a creative act. Dare we think of it as not some recreation of Eden, but the sanctification of difference. A sanctification, if you will, of the new baby. For those of you who do not already know, much of my work, including the many houses of worship depicted in the Holy City paintings, are, in part, created from the wrappers of various sweets and chocolates from around the world. Not only does this give the paintings luminosity, but it invites the pilgrim to understand that the structures themselves are merely a shell, inviting the pilgrim to move beyond the surface exterior, the foil wrappers of silvers, golds, blues and reds, and to discover the treasure which lies inside, a far more sensuous experience with the divine. A work of art accumulates a history once it's created. The first venue for this large holy city on stage, a nontic, technically called, was the Washington National Cathedral, as has already been mentioned. Washington, D.C. is full of embassies representing countries from around the world, and one can forget that D.C. could also claim to be an interfaith holy city, with churches, temples, mosques, synagogues and shrines from around the world. On the 15th anniversary of 9/11, people of all faiths and cultures in and around Washington, D.C. area walked down Massachusetts Avenue and visited houses of worship and religious centers in a public celebration of unity and support for everyone within the city's diverse community. The Unity Walk, which has now become an annual pilgrimage, organized 10 religious centers to be open to all visitors. This, of course, included the Washington National Cathedral, where this holy city nontic awaited them. It's exciting for my wife Wendy and I to now experience your vision of collaboration around this concept of pilgrimage. We're looking forward to Dr. Dahil's exploration of the individual and collective eco-spirituality that ends with a walk through the university's labyrinth. We have never seen a sukkah, so can't wait to join you all under Rabbi Cantor's guidance in the Jewish Community Centre courtyard. Having only experienced El Camino in a station wagon full of paintings, bound to various exhibitions in Santiago de Compostela, we are eager to see Mr. Drew's photos and hear of his exploits. And this will be a special opportunity to better understand from the Farmington American Muslim Center the sacred pilgrimages of the Hajj and Umrah. As we would all agree, the Holy City is more than Jerusalem, or Mecca, or Rome, or Lhasa, or Washington, D.C. The Holy City is the dream of humanity, and it is at the heart of religious identity to find those thin places, and thus confirm what we have always suspected, that there is more, that this life is but the wrapper, but only the wrapper of something much, much more. We have to give ourselves permission to seek again the Holy City, and to realize that it is nothing like that which we have seen. It is the destination for those pilgrims who still believe in the wonders of those things unseen, but which are not unknown to the human heart. I have painted holy cities for all who dare to dream that there is hope, that there is more to life than just conflict and enemies, and for those who still walk the ancient pilgrim's path. Thank you.
All right, I'm sure you all have questions.
I thought I was going to get away then.
I'm sure you have questions for Brian about his paintings and symbolism and what he meant, or what you find intriguing by these. So please. So. Yes.
Well, yeah. First, I like this picture. It's slightly, it's very wonderful. I like to say it's how art when you did it. So my question is, how long did you find it? How long did you work it?
Oh, how long did it take me to paint
Yes.
it? 2 years. 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah. And I didn't have a studio big enough to stand back and see it in one glance. You know, I had about 6 feet space. And I didn't even have enough height. The bottom paintings were stuck out here. So I was working like that and working like this. And then I tended to pull 2 paintings together and I'd work between them. And then I might take these 2 and paint between those a bit. But I'm amazed. And I didn't see it properly until it was hung at the Washington Cathedral. That was the first time I saw the whole thing properly. And I was very gratified that, you know, there's a kind of democracy about the picture. There's so many colours in it, and yet it looks balanced, it looks fine. A lot of artists who paint, if they do paint very large pictures, Picasso included, Stanley Spencer, others, if they're going to paint something very big, they tend to limit their colours. You know, if you look at the painting of Guernica, it's greys and blues, isn't it, and blacks and whites, because he knew if he strayed into other colours, it may not balance. But so anyway, I threw caution to the wind, as you can see.
So because you put 9 screens, so there you put 9 screens and you find, or because of its means that there is connection with one and the others. So it means you would there be 9 screens and you find it.
I didn't do much of that, but
So
no, it was more small. But before I launched onto this one, I had done smaller holy cities. I'd done some smaller ones, like the ones behind you there. And if I saw a little combination of colours that I thought were good, I might say, oh, I'm going to put that into this painting here. Now, it never survived. You know, I would end up changing it and not get the colours right. But I had lots of other holy cities to stimulate my mind. So that I thought, okay, that's a good part, I'll try and use that somewhere. I can't see anything that jumps out at me on there that I might have put in here. Or the other way around sometimes. But yeah, when I look at some holy cities, I've got them around the house, and if I see a section, I think, oh, that's nice, that will stimulate me to go and start another painting. So I might do that little bit, and then I'll carry on working. And it's a bit like then, you're walking around the city and seeing it from different angles. These could all be different streets in this city, couldn't they? Really? Okay, thanks for the question. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about your materials, the kinds of paints that you use. But I also just want to make a comment on the use of the candy wrappers and the other wrappers, because I thought it was so sophisticated when I was looking at some of the other paintings, and I said, oh, that's gold leaf and silver leaf, very precious and delicate, materials to use. And here you are taking such prosaic, plain, everyday materials like candy wrappers and raising their level of holiness. to something precious. It's just
What do they call it? Yeah, there's upcycling.
upcycling. Right. But really,
Yeah, really, very high up.
so what
Yeah.
did you paint? Talk about.
How did that happen?
How did you know, what kind of materials do you use?
Oh, it's acrylic. They're all acrylic on canvas, I think, apart from one. Maybe it's that the dove there. That's on board, I think. I mean, for practical reasons, it's canvas. I'd love to use board as well, but I can't really get the quality that I want anyway. And I use acrylic varnish to stick down the chocolate wrappers. You know, when people have bought a holy city and they have it hanging in their room and they're eating a bar of chocolate, they can't but remember me. You know, so they'll try and flatten it out, put it in an envelope. And when they've got a few, they send them to me. So, and that's like a little burst of love that comes to me. You know, someone, oh, I get them from all over the world. I mean, Paris and parts of America and stuff. So that keeps me going. And then sometimes they come up with some really good colours, and even the colours can inspire on their own. You know, if I get a beautiful blue or something. So I put a layer of acrylic varnish down, cut the shape I want, lay it down, and then cover it with acrylic varnish. So the wrappers are sandwiched between two layers. And they're pretty robust. I mean, if I wanted to get them off, it would be as difficult as trying to get some paint off, you know, which is normal. So, but you can keep layering it, you know, if you want, if you're worried about it or whatever. But, I think we were talking about collage, quite often with a big painting, but actually not with holy cities. I will use collage to develop a design, so I know what I'm doing, and then I'll put that to one side and then paint those collage shapes. But I don't do that with the holy cities. I just go straight in because the organic part of it is important, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
My question relates to this piece here that we're focusing on. And it's sort of the universal and the particular. And I find beauty in both in my own life.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's any part of this sort of big collage of places of worship places and scenes and textures. Is there something here that draws you to your own particular? Is there somewhere here that you might tell us a story about? I'm drawn to all kinds of little places here, but there might be one here. Is there something here that brings you home? And I know home is difficult for you because you've been in so many places, but is there anything here that's special that we could learn about you from a little scene here?
That's an interesting point. I'm an immigrant. I've lived here for a while. I'm not an American citizen. And even when I lived in London, I was an Irish citizen. So I'm always, where is home? I don't know. There's going to be a time when I say I'm home now, but it hasn't quite happened yet. So perhaps the fact that this isn't any one particular place echoes that for me, doesn't it? No, this is my invention of a holy city. This is what I would expect of a beautiful holy city, what I could imagine. But it doesn't exist. It's an aspirational city. I'm still looking for it, like I said in the piece there. We're all looking for it. We're all trying to get there. I would love to see a holy city that had all three faiths, the Abrahamic faith, living in harmony and equal in a way. When we had the Washington International Cathedral, they wanted to make a card of the event. And of course, doing one of the whole thing, if you see that in the card, it's a bit of a mess. It's just too much going on. So they had to choose a little part of the painting. But of course, they had to be worried. They had to be sure that each of the three faiths was equally represented. And some of these symbols are larger or smaller. So you had to weigh that as well. It was quite a nightmare for the graphic designers to find a little part of it, a detail of it, which someone could say, oh, where are the, whatever religion you belong to. But they did it in the end, But I thought it was quite an interesting experience for them to try and do this. The funny thing is that, I have to say that at the time I did most of these holy cities, I'd never been to Jerusalem, which is the place most people consider that holy city is. And that one lady who did not want to be reminded of it, stimulated all this work. But years later, we went to Jerusalem. And it wasn't that good either. I didn't want to be reminded of it. We nearly turned around and came home after 3 days. We were booked in for 10. The experience we had was not good. So this reinforces the fact that, I'm trying to create a new holy city, something more aspirational, something that I can be pleased about and feel, there's warmth, hospitality attached to it. That was one of the things, inside the holy city there isn't a pub, is there? There isn't a place of hospitality that is open to everybody. I felt it was quite closed. We stayed at the American Colony Hotel, and that was wonderful. That was really beautiful. If it hadn't been for there, I think we would have come home earlier. But it wasn't a good experience. So what that lady said was true for me as well, which is a very sad thing to say.
Brian, if I may,
Yeah.
just an answer to the question, you might want to focus on the middle panel there with the field of stars.
Oh, yes.
That is a location.
Yeah, sure. We've been to loads and loads of holy cities, Santiago, Guadalupe, Lourdes, Fatima, we've been everywhere. One of my favourite cities is Santiago de Compostela. Again, the hospitality is fantastic. This is my idea of the field of stars. Compostela means the field of stars. And when you're in a place where, the area where they think it may have been, when they saw lights and things, the granite rocks seem to be full of stars. There's lots of flecks and quartz and things in it. But I wondered if that was what inspired it. But, so these are the stars coming down from heaven, in a sense, onto that blue field of sky. And that's, of course, you probably all know, the scallop shell is the symbol of the pilgrim. There's a pilgrim in every single one of these paintings, if you can spot him or her. And that's the largest pilgrim, and his cloak is covered with those scallop shells, and it's all on his hat. If you've been there, there's often a pilgrim dressed in this traditional garb to greet pilgrims on their way through. And I used to have a couple of chats with him. It's a wonderful place to be and see the pilgrims coming in. Some of them are on their knees, some are crying, some are happy, some are singing. They're all the gamut of emotions that you can feel in that square. So I could sit there for hours and watch what's going on. But I have to say I haven't done very much walking. I think when we used to stay in hotels there, when you see people at the end of the pilgrim route, when they get up from their breakfast the next morning, and then put me off. I like this. I used to like chatting to the pilgrims, and it's interesting that many expect some kind of a great revelation, something's going to happen, a great hand's going to come down, something like that. And the things they talk about are things like, oh, when that man gave me that Mars bar, wow, that was amazing. And a bowl of soapy water for my feet. All material things that they talk about gave them so much pleasure. And I'll tell you something funny, interesting about pilgrims. I saw an advertisement, or my wife did, for someone who did the pilgrimage, the Camino. And I went along to hear her experiences. And I should have known this, but when I walked into the place, it was a gym. And the woman who did the Camino, all she talked about was the kind of trainers that she'd used. The rucksack, the socks, and how many miles. There was nothing about the spiritual aspect of it at all. And all the people around her just wanted to talk about, so wait a minute, don't you think Nike's better? And then she was saying this, like, what? They've got this great big thing that they fly around in the cathedral. I don't know what it was. And every time I say, I know what it is. So I tell them, and then after a little while, people were getting really fed up with me because I was answering all the questions they were all answered, but I wasn't giving the talk. There's a physical side, and there's a mental side, and there's a spiritual side to it. Anyway, just came to me. Any other questions? Deborah?
I love the vibrant life of trees and plants.
Yeah, me too. As I was saying, there's the generous, flowers and leaves. It's kind of, yeah.
I too love the natural beauty that comes through, and I heard you mention the Abrahamic faiths, but do you have images and icons of other non-Western religious faiths as well?
I didn't do that. I felt like that was a door that would have opened up a vast amount of things, I mean, there are so many different religions, and everybody, if I was to say everybody's represented, I'd always get it wrong. There would be somebody missed out. But I know there's the issues surrounding the three Abrahamic faiths, have been with us, for an awfully long time. I thought those are the ones that I could limit myself to and make a statement. But yeah, there's always that issue. We lived next to some Sikhs, I think, for a while, and they showed me what they would have in it. And I didn't use it. Could have done.
It's a hint of indigeneity in the trees and flowers and stars, the sense that the sky is alive, right? Like it feels very animate. It feels like it's an animate.
Yeah, it's moving, it's organic. Yeah,
so
it changes.
It's an indigenous spirituality.
Sure. And in different lighting conditions it appears to, and it's beautifully lit, this painting, it really does jump out. But even in low lighting, you'll see it differently, because those reflective surfaces pick up lights in different ways. Yeah.
As you, however you initially envisioned the whole piece or separate pieces or putting them together, I'm curious about the placement on everything's askew.
Yeah.
From, which is lovely. It's just, why? Or how did the...
Yeah.
everything's tipped.
Yeah. I draw attention to the difference between symmetry and balance. Symmetry is kind of just the same either way, and I mean, that's an easy balance. But if I can put one shape in one and then try and balance it with something that's different, but seems to hold its own as well, and keeps it balanced, that's what I tend to look for. The other thing is, when I'm thinking, the stars are always in my paintings, I love doing them, and the influence of the stars and the planets on us, that's what I wanted to feel in the painting. So, things are either being shocked away from or being pulled towards. I wanted to put gravity into the picture as well. That was what I would move all the time. I mean, if you look at, I know that some people think, everything should be straight, and that's the way buildings are, but, if I was to, this wall, if that went up and up and up forever, this would be bent, this would join, wouldn't it? It would join that way, if we were looking down a lift shaft, it joins that way, if we look this way, it joins. There's no stability really, everything is on a curve. In fact, what we see is a kind of like a fisheye. Have you ever tried to stand somewhere and take a photograph of everything in front of you, like that, try and get it, and print them all out, and then try and fit them together? You can't do it. You can't do it. It ends up being a fisheye lens, a very extraordinary one. It's a good exercise for everybody to do, because there's no straight lines in nature, or even in buildings, they're all curved. Anyway, so I exaggerated that.
Well, the movement, what's kind of hitting me is there's this motion or movement in what is to be buildings, which I guess we could say don't use the movement. That's fascinating. In the imagination of a holy place, wouldn't you want to see, things moving?
Yeah, well that feeds into this idea of, you get a new neighbour and you share a fence or you share a hedge or something, and you give way to them, and then, it's give and take, isn't it? And that's what's happening in the painting. Sometimes I make a roof a bit smaller in order to make way for something else. But yeah, within that, the metaphor of painting a picture, particularly like this, is a good one for, faiths getting on with each other and seeing the right good side of each other's faiths.
Thank you.
It's sort of like Where's Waldo?
Yes.
And I think I've discovered, and I'm sure obviously not the first and you painted it, so you'll know better than anyone, but there is at least a human pilgrim within each panel.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay,
yes.
so there, although I struggled with the top left, but it could just be my eyesight, but I think I found that human pilgrim. And the middle pilgrim is quite large compared to the others.
Yeah, it is.
And it has more description. And there are animal pilgrims
pilgrims as well. But it's quite stunning. Is there anything there that you'd like to share regarding the representations of the pilgrim within each of the 9 squares? Is it 9 total?
It is 9, yeah. It's called a non-sig, that's really like a triptych, but a non-sig, it's 9 panels. When I was still in the process of painting, and I put 1 or 2 pilgrims in, and visitors to the studio would say, well, this one hasn't got a pilgrim in it, that hasn't got a pilgrim. So I feel compelled to put another one in, so that everybody had it, because I knew that people would look at that and say, you've forgotten to put one in, haven't you? So there's another example of how people's expectations or their sense of routine or discipline comes through. So I was happy to do that just for the sake of that. I think there's one in every one of those as well, but I don't think there's one in that one. I think there's one in that one. But, the story of the pilgrim, well, I think I've sort of said it in a way. See, the books that we've got are called A Pilgrimage of Sight, which was something I took from a person again who was reviewing my work. He said, going to one of my exhibitions is like a pilgrimage of sight. So, as an artist, I'm travelling, mentally travelling, and probably kind of settling into our experiences of holy cities that we enjoyed. I would say like Fatima and Guadalupe and all these places. In fact, I'd rather go to a holy city, somewhere like that, than an art gallery. I get more stimulation from Guadalupe than I would from going to the Museum of Modern Art, I think, And where I lived in a stable, say, in East Anglia, there's a higher density of medieval churches in Suffolk than anywhere in Europe, which is extraordinary. You can stand at the top of a tower and you can see 2 or 3 others. If you stand at the top of a tower in a church tower, you can see 2 or 3 others. But what was funny about it was that most of these, they've all suffered the Reformation in the sense of being whitewashed and cleaned up. There's nothing inside the churches. That used to upset me. I thought the churches had their own beauty, for being whitewashed. But I mentioned this to a person who was born and bred in Suffolk, and he said, well, if you know where to look, there's some really good things still survive the Reformation. So every Saturday morning, I get in the car with him and we go off and he'd show me what he'd found, and they were fantastic things. But they did make you wonder, well, if this was left over, what was the major stuff that was lost? What was that like? But I also enjoyed the light-heartedness, the humour in the medieval artwork. In a funny sort of way, I think that when the Renaissance came along, they lost it a bit. Got a bit too serious and too observational, But I love the fact that, you might find a nativity or something, and then round the back of the stable there'd be a monk drinking some beer or something silly like that. That used to tickle me. So any other question? I hope I answered your question all right.
No, that's good. Maybe Carol will ask this question. I've given occasional sermons, and sometimes someone will come up to me after I've given the sermon and tell me something profound about what I said, and it's not what I meant. And I thought, you just made the sermon better than what I gave. And I'm appreciative, and I know how hard to tell them I wasn't that sophisticated myself.
Yeah.
And have you had anything in this painting where someone has said, this is so profound, I love how you've done this and this, and you're like, oh, I didn't intend it, but that's... Have you had these moments where people have pulled things more than you put in?
I can't say with this particular or the holy cities, but I can for lots of my other work. Yeah, I mean, very often paintings they change their titles because of the input of somebody. They've seen it differently, and I thought, wow, that's a much better idea than I had. And I'll claim for it for my own. That happens quite a lot. But this painting kind of poses a different kind of question. It doesn't exist, but it'd be great if it did. In fact, our house, has many of these sorts of colours in it, kind of creating it in our space at home with the yellows and blues and things.
Well, if I may, I'm going to jump in with one thing, and that is was it your wife that pointed out the middle stars?
Compostela, yeah.
And for me, growing up, we sang a song in our church, an old Dutch hymn, and it was, the opening line is "By the Sea of Crystal." And it refers to, and I just had to look it up because I didn't remember all the words. I'll just read the first line. It says, "By the sea of crystal, saints in glory stand, myriads in number, drawn from every land." It goes on to kind of a Christian vision of heaven. And for me, I was drawn to that middle piece as the sea of crystal, not as the sky. And so maybe in the same sense of me asking if someone has seen something that you didn't intend, clearly that was a starry sky, but for me it was the sea of crystal.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I'm comfortable with it being both, at the same time.
someone sees something else.
I don't need to define its colour. But you're right. I mean, it could be. I found at one stage of painting, I thought of it as a lake, which was reflecting the stars.
Yeah, that's what I saw this twinkling.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But the word Compostela means field of stars. So, but then again, that could be interpreted as being, even the sky could be a field of stars, couldn't it? Do it that way. Oh, yeah. Come on.
So I have a question with interpretations. My question is, I want to know to what school of art this painting belongs. Is it expressionism, impressionism? So I was confused. Like to
I get asked that question quite a lot. What kind of an art is this? But eventually, I did come up with a phrase. Is it on there? I don't know, but it's I draw on the medieval traditions of East Anglia, of stuff, because when I saw that work, I knew that I was struggling to get there, and they endorsed what I was trying to do. So, but then also, gentlemen here from Ethiopia, people kept saying, "Your work looks very Ethiopian." And then when I got there, I thought, "Wow, yes, this whole country's doing what I'm trying to do in my studio." Another interesting thing is about this East Anglian medieval art. I had an exhibition at Norwich Cathedral in Norfolk, which is in East Anglia, and a chap came in and looked at my work and he said, "Oh, I see what you're doing. This is a modern take on traditional Christian imagery, a contemporary take." So I said, "Well, come with me," and I took him into the nave of the cathedral and said, "This is how contemporary it is. Look at that roof boss there, look at that roof boss there." They were doing the same thing, and the colours were the same. And so they were doing this in the 12th century, and I'm just bringing it back again. And I think why maybe I'm so drawn to it is, I was thinking Ireland. I mean, I'm Irish, with my background, my parents, and all that. We don't really have an artist. I think every country seems to have an artist, a great artist like Picasso or or somebody. The Irish don't have them. They're all very literal. There's great writers. And I wonder, maybe it's the storytelling in me that's coming through in these medieval art paintings. I can think they're full of stories, and as an Irishman, I want to tell stories, and I do want people to laugh as well. So perhaps that's where those ideas are coming from. Medieval really spoke to me. And as I said, before the Reformation, everybody in Christendom were looking at the same hymn book. They were looking at reading the same Bible in the same way, and they're looking at the pictures on the wall and interpreting it in the same way. There wasn't any split. And that's what inspired me.
Yeah, so it transcends any school of art.
It's not.
It's your own school, maybe.
Okay, I tell you another thing. That sometimes people come to me and say, "Oh, you've been looking at a lot of Bulgarian art, haven't you?" Somebody actually came and said, "Oh, you've looked at a lot of Japanese art, haven't you?" And he was Japanese. But that was the strength. I thought, well, everybody seems to find something of themselves and their own culture in my work. That's fantastic, isn't it? Every country, In fact, the chap came in once and he looked at my work and he said, "Oh, Ethiopia, I know what you're doing," and then walked out again. He thought I just copied Ethiopia. I couldn't deny being there,
I would love to share my humble reading of this masterpiece. So I see it, I read it as a representation of life, the whole painting, and there is this recurring figure, which is the pilgrim, which President Whelan mentioned. I see it as the very epitome of humanity or humans with a capital age. So I see myself in that pilgrim going through this like journey. It's a self-quest, it's a self-journey towards discovering the inner realm of the self, the complexity of the self, as much as the complexity of life, like standing there in bewilderment and amazement, like in front of this diversity, which is beautifully confusing, but it has meaning in it. I mean, and I see it, this is the very start of life, until that very painting, the last one there, I see it as the end, but it's not really the end, it's not literally the end, but every journey comes to an end, but it's a beautiful end because it leads to a maybe spiritual or higher, like, I don't know, meaning or...
Yeah.
Well, I wish I'd recorded that. Oh, we have? Thank you so much.
I love that you've read it essentially right to left, because you pointed to the end on the left.
Yeah.
Maybe your sense of reading is right to left.
Is it because I'm an Arabic speaker, we read it from right to left?
Right.
So,
Yes,
it's programmed in that way. I read it, this is the first...
You don't read it from bottom to top as well, do you? Did you? Well, when I first tried to start this, I had one canvas and I thought I'll get on with it, and I'd almost finished it, and I realised, well, if I were going to do it one at a time, by the time I got to the end, the style would be completely different. I had to move all over the place all the time. Every time I came into the studio, I'd get a different canvas and kept moving it around. So all of those colours and all those ways of painting got mixed up. But if I did them in a straight line, I've never painted like that anyway, but you used to do a straight line. They wouldn't fit together, they really wouldn't.
So really, your process is organic, and the product, the work of art is organic, and you're using all these organic shapes, and the trees and the plants and the buildings are leading into and onto each other. It's all very organic, and your process too. You just went, you sort of journeyed from piece to piece, and each thing influenced the next.
Sure, yeah, that's exactly right. It was very organic. For 2 years, yeah.
Question here. Hi.
Hello.
I of course, celestial bodies have been brought up, stars you mentioned falling, and all that stuff, but I really find it interesting that instead of it kind of all being up here in the almost the ground, the city being down here, it's buoyed around, like the celestial bodies are buoyed around the cities, around the living things. Was there an intentional purpose behind that, in almost like a spherical sense? You could talk about the fish islands concept of the work, or was there another concept you had for the, like, pretty much the border of the painting?
Yeah, I'd already started into the picture, and I didn't know how to resolve the edges and the bottom. And I had possibly an idea that this whole thing might be like the planet Earth. With all these stars down here as well, underneath it. But it was very unstable when that started to, I felt it. So, in a way, it's contrary to the holy city idea, the holy mountain. I started to think perhaps this was a small structure at the bottom of the picture, and the celestials were in an arc sort of shape. That was what occurred to me, and then when I really started to settle into that, I was comfortable with it. Otherwise, I might get sort of seasick or something. It needs to have something to anchor me down. But yeah, those ideas floated around in my head at the early stages, but they were quickly resolved in this idea of a kind of like a big landmass, like a rock. I climbed Croagh Patrick in Ireland years and years ago, and that was quite a wonderful experience. The funny thing about it is that when you look at it from a distance, it has a kind of white crest to it. It looks a bit like snow, but you don't get a lot of snow in Ireland, and it wasn't snow. It's when you get close to it, it's some kind of screen. I don't know what it's made of, but it's white. And it has the texture of chalk. And the thing is, so it's not sharp, but as people are climbing up, they look at that and they see other pilgrims up there, and as they step into it, it's unstable, and people were kind of shaky. And people were turning back and going back home. They said, well, I can't do that. But if you got up there, you realised it wasn't sharp. They were all quite blunt, and just like breaking chalk. And so you got up to the top, and it was almost as if it was a gift, from your perseverance to keep going. It turned out that what everybody thought was the most difficult part of the journey was actually the easiest. And so that was a memory that came to me when I was doing this painting as well. So, we all congratulated ourselves. But I saw people that had all the gear. They had the mountain climbing boots and all the equipment, and they turned around because they thought they couldn't do it. So, any other questions?
Just one aspect of this that I've heard you talk about previously is that although all 9 panels fit together in the way you described, but I heard you mention that you also wanted each individual panel to stand on its own and display individually.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel empty or relies on the other.
Sure. Thanks for saying that, Ron. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, that's another discipline I put on the painting, was that I wanted them to work individually as well. And any kind of paintings that if I do a triptych or something like that, a group of paintings, I always try to make sure that like David Hockney does pictures, that if you took one part of them out, it wouldn't make any sense. But I always wanted each panel to work. If that was framed on its own, it would be perfectly adequate as a painting, it would work. That's potentially, imagine all 9 panels going off to different parts of the world, and then coming back 10 years later and being put back together again.
Each pilgrim takes one.
Yeah, so each pilgrim takes one away. Right.
Well, I think it's safe to say we can say we have now the official artist of Ireland. Thank you so much, Brian. Again, these paintings will be here until November 22nd. Please tell your friends and family. They're welcome to come and view the exhibition throughout the whole time. Also, check the website for the other events taking place at the other co-sponsored institutions and organizations. Love to see you at some of those places there. Once again, thank you so much.